Ladies and gentlemen, love is one of the most profound and complex emotions we experience. Yet, it often confuses us because it doesn't always come wrapped in the packages we expect. Someone who loves you deeply might ignore you at times, and that paradox can leave you questioning their intentions. But let me assure you, this dynamic has layers of meaning. When someone loves you, their silence isn't always about absence, it's about intention. Love doesn't seek to overwhelm or control. Sometimes it steps back, allowing you the space to breathe, to grow, to be. In those moments of withdrawal, they are not abandoning you, but respecting the individuality that makes you who you are. A person who loves deeply can become vulnerable. Vulnerability exposes their fears, their doubts, and their insecurities. And in their retreat, they're not rejecting you, they're safeguarding their heart while figuring out how to give you the best of themselves. Then there's the unspoken truth about love. It's not always clear or easy to communicate. In their silence, they may be struggling with how to express emotions that run too deep for words. Their ignoring you isn't a statement of neglect, it's an indication of love wrestling with itself, trying to find its voice. True love is never about constant proximity. It's about trust. It trusts that even in the moments of quiet or distance, the connection remains unbroken. It tests the foundation, knowing that real love doesn't crumble under silence, it strengthens. And so when someone who loves you seems to ignore you, take heart. It's not about their absence, but their way of preparing their heart to love you better. Sometimes the greatest love steps back, not to leave you behind, but to grow closer in a way that is deeper, stronger, and everlasting. True love is a language that speaks in ways we don't always recognize. It's not always about grand gestures or constant attention. Sometimes love chooses silence over words, distance over closeness, and restraint over indulgence. This can feel confusing because we often equate love with perpetual presence and undivided attention, but real love operates on a deeper level. When someone loves you, they may express it in ways that are not immediately visible. They might choose to give you the freedom to grow rather than holding on tightly. They may hold back their emotions, not because they don't feel deeply, but because they don't want to overwhelm you. Love expressed differently is love that respects your individuality and trusts your ability to navigate life without constant hand-holding. It's important to understand that love isn't always loud. It doesn't always announce itself with dramatic declarations or persistent involvement. Instead, it can be quiet, subtle, and deliberate. It allows space for reflection, growth, and independence. This kind of love isn't neglectful, it's thoughtful. It recognizes that for a relationship to thrive, both individuals need room to breathe, to think, and to become the best versions of themselves. So when love appears in a form you don't immediately recognize, don't mistake it for indifference. Look deeper. True love doesn't conform to expectations. It honors the unique dynamic of the relationship and expresses itself in ways that are genuine and meaningful, even if they don't look like what you imagined. When someone loves you deeply, their emotions can become overwhelming, not just for you, but for them as well. Love, in its purest form, is intense and powerful, and sometimes the person who loves you may feel that their affection is too much to handle all at once. In these moments, the fear of overwhelming you can cause them to pull back. They don't want their feelings to be too suffocating, to make you feel trapped or burdened by the weight of their love. This fear isn't about a lack of love. It's a reflection of how much they care. They understand the delicate balance between showing love and giving the other person the space they need. They may worry that their constant presence or unrelenting affection could leave you feeling stifled, as though you're no longer able to maintain your own sense of individuality or freedom. In a relationship, especially one where deep love is involved, there's an unspoken understanding that love should never feel like an obligation. It should never feel forced or overwhelming. And so to prevent this from happening, the person who loves you might intentionally create distance, giving you room to breathe, to be yourself, and to navigate life without the pressure of their constant affection. This fear of overwhelming comes from a place of care and respect. It's not about withdrawing out of disinterest or neglect. It's about giving the other person the opportunity to grow and exist without feeling the weight of constant emotional expectation. It's a delicate dance between loving someone fiercely and respecting their need for space, freedom, and autonomy. And often, the deeper the love, the greater the desire to protect the other person from feeling overwhelmed by it. Self-reflection is a natural part of love, especially when the feelings are deep and genuine. When someone loves you profoundly, they may sometimes withdraw not because of anything you've done, but because they need time to evaluate their own emotions and actions. Love requires maturity, and part of that maturity involves understanding oneself before fully giving to another. When they step back, it may be a sign that they are engaging in self-reflection, assessing how they can be a better partner, and how their love can be more aligned with the needs of the relationship. In moments of self-reflection, they ask themselves difficult questions. Am I loving you in the way you need me to? Am I bringing my best self to this relationship? Is there something within me that I need to address to make this love stronger? This process is essential because it allows them to grow individually, which ultimately makes the relationship stronger. By stepping back, they are giving themselves the time to ensure that they are not acting out of impulse or emotion, but out of a deep understanding of their own desires, needs, and capacity to love. It's easy to get lost in the intensity of emotions and to react without considering the broader picture. But self-reflection allows them to approach love with a clearer perspective, avoiding mistakes that could come from emotional overload. This space for reflection is necessary for both individuals in the relationship. It ensures that the love shared is thoughtful, intentional, and well-balanced. It's a way of taking responsibility for one's actions and emotions and ensuring that they are showing up in the relationship in the healthiest way possible. It may feel like distance, but in reality, it's a space where growth happens, both individually and as a couple. Emotional vulnerability is one of the most powerful aspects of love, yet it is also one of the most delicate. When someone loves you deeply, they open themselves up in ways that can be both beautiful and intimidating. The more they care, the more exposed they feel. Their emotions become raw, and in that vulnerability, they may retreat, not because they love you any less, but because they need time to process their feelings. Deep love makes them feel incredibly vulnerable, as they become aware of just how much their hearts are invested in you. This vulnerability can be terrifying. It exposes their fears, insecurities, and sometimes their past wounds. They might fear being hurt, rejected, or misunderstood. So in moments where their love feels overwhelming, they may pull back to protect themselves. It's not a defense mechanism against you, but a way to shield their own heart from the fear of potential loss or emotional hurt. Loving someone so deeply can leave them feeling like they're walking on fragile ground, and that fear of vulnerability can make them step back to regain their emotional balance. At the same time, the person who loves you deeply may not know how to express their feelings in a way that feels safe. Love, in its purest form, is supposed to be unconditional and open. But when someone feels emotionally exposed, they may not have the words to fully convey what's in their heart. The silence or distance isn't a sign of neglect. It's their way of sorting through their emotions to ensure that when they do approach you again, they do so with clarity and authenticity. Emotional vulnerability is the essence of true connection, but it's also a delicate process of opening up, knowing that the other person holds the power to hurt or heal. When someone loves you deeply and seems to pull away, it's often because they are wrestling with their own emotional rawness, seeking the strength to be fully open and present without the fear of being too exposed or hurt. It's a quiet, powerful act of love, even in its moments of retreat. Unintentional miscommunication often arises in relationships, especially when emotions run deep. In moments when someone loves you profoundly, their actions and words may be misinterpreted, not because they don't care, but because love is a complex language, and sometimes their intent is lost in translation. Their silence or distance might be read as indifference, yet in reality it may stem from a desire to communicate in a way that won't overwhelm you or complicate the situation. They may pull back, not because they don't want to engage, but because they are struggling to express what they feel in a way that you can fully understand. Sometimes love itself becomes too much to articulate, and words fail to capture the depth of their emotions. The person who loves you may withdraw because they don't want to say something that could be misinterpreted or misunderstood. In these moments, they might fear that their intentions will be twisted or their feelings will be misconstrued, leading to unnecessary conflict. This fear of miscommunication often causes them to retreat into silence, hoping for clarity in their own hearts before they speak again. Moreover, the difference in communication styles between two people can also contribute to this unintentional disconnect. One person might express their love through actions rather than words, while the other might seek verbal affirmation or constant reassurance. This mismatch can create confusion, as one might interpret the lack of verbal expressions as a lack of love, when in truth the person may be showing their affection in ways they believe are more meaningful or less intrusive. In these moments, both individuals must take the time to understand each other's unique ways of communicating love, learning to bridge the gap between intention and perception. Unintentional miscommunication often happens because both people are navigating their own emotional landscapes. They might not always have the emotional vocabulary to express what's in their hearts, or they may fear saying the wrong thing. Love is meant to connect, but sometimes the words and actions fall short, causing temporary confusion. But this miscommunication is not a sign of neglect. It's simply the struggle of two hearts trying to understand each other in the complex dance of love. When it occurs, patience, understanding, and open communication are needed to bridge the gap and ensure that love remains the guiding force, even in moments of misunderstanding. In any deep relationship, there comes a time when both individuals seek reassurance, even if it's unspoken. Love at its core is about trust, connection, and the strength of the bond that ties two people together. Sometimes the person who loves you may step back, not out of disinterest, but to test the strength of the relationship. This is not about doubting the love itself, but rather it's an unspoken way of reaffirming that the connection remains solid, even when there is distance or silence. Testing the bond is a natural part of love's evolution. When someone loves you deeply, they may withdraw briefly to see if the love they share with you is resilient enough to withstand challenges, space, or even silence. They might wonder, is this relationship strong enough to endure the ebb and flow of emotions of moments when we are not constantly in each other's presence? They seek to understand if their absence is noticed, if the connection remains firm, and if the love can survive, grow, and thrive without the need for constant reinforcement. This act is not about breaking the connection or intentionally causing pain. Rather, it's a way of confirming that the bond is not fragile, that it can withstand times of uncertainty or separation. When they step back, it's often a reflection of their trust in the relationship and a desire to see if the foundation of love they've built is truly unshakable. They want to know that the love you share can endure beyond the surface level of constant presence or constant conversation. It's about the deeper reassurance that no matter what happens in the external world, the love between you both remains constant and unwavering. Testing the bond doesn't mean that there is a lack of confidence in the relationship. It's a moment of introspection to ensure that the connection they value so much can survive challenges. It's a reminder that love isn't only about presence, it's also about trust, commitment, and the ability to stand strong together, even in moments of quiet or space. And when both people pass the test, when they realize that their love is not only sustained but strengthened by the distance, the bond becomes even deeper, more powerful, and more unbreakable. In the dance of love, silence and distance are not always signs of weakness or fading affection. Sometimes they are the necessary pauses where reflection, vulnerability, and trust are built. The person who loves you deeply may seem to pull away, but in truth, they are not abandoning you. They are protecting their heart, ensuring that their love remains pure and true, and testing the strength of the bond that holds you together. Love is not always about constant presence, but about resilience, understanding, and the ability to grow both individually and together. So when someone who loves you a lot seems to ignore you, remember that love is deeper than what meets the eye. It's about respect, trust, and the quiet assurance that even in moments of absence, the connection endures. Do not mistake space for neglect or silence for indifference. True love is strong enough to survive distance, and it only grows stronger through the challenges it faces. Stay patient, stay grounded, and know that love, in its most profound form, will always find its way back to you, because love is not a feeling that fades, it is a bond that deepens with time, trust, and understanding.